Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first ever parent workshop. This is the first of many to come. Thank you for joining us. My name is Teacher Amy. I'm one of the 3 to 6 year old directresses as well as the vice principal of the school. Are you guys excited?
Yes.
Can I see some smiles? Don't worry, it's not a test. So, but if you have a pen and paper, take that. But it's not a test. Okay. How many of you are familiar with the Montessori type of education? You can just show by raising your hand. So, yeah. YouTube. We take that. That is okay. That's why we are having these workshops, so that we can be on the same page, you know what's happening at school, and you're not in the dark. Okay, for those that raise up their hands, can you tell me one thing you know about Montessori? Just one.
I think they choose to focus on what they enjoy first, and that's not a
Correct. I saw a hand somewhere.
That was me. They learn through exploring and playing.
Correct. Susan. Independence, that's correct. Right, Dr. Montessori is the founder of the Montessori system of education. She emphasized the need for early education. It was much later that the educational research verified that early years are most important years for a person's life. But the question is, how did Dr. Montessori write it down? If you have a pen and paper, or you can keep it in mind. How did Dr. Montessori, a physician who was born before the 20th century began and died in the middle of it, develop an educational system that prepares young children for the 21st century? How did she do it? Keep that question in mind. The answer can only be found if and when we understand the Montessori type of education, the Montessori method, and what it entails. But before we dive into our discussions for today, it is essential to understand the foundation upon which all our practices and beliefs at Zenith Montessori are built. This foundation is rooted in the life and work of a remarkable woman, Maria Montessori. I like to refer her in the present tense, because to me she is still very much alive in her legacy, which continues to inspire us and shape our approach to education. For this, I will leave the platform to our visionary leader and the brains behind Zenith Montessori to give us a brief history of Maria Montessori. Andrea Montes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I also just want to mention that we do want it to be quite an interactive day with our parents. So it's not a let's wait till the end for any Q&As. If you do have any questions to ask, you can just put your hand up. Yeah, and we'll take it from there. Okay. Okay, everybody here? Okay. Okay, good afternoon, parents. Sure. Firstly, I need to express how much it warms my heart being here in front of you all today. And I'm so impressed by the turnout. Even though we did have some cancellations this morning, I'm going to blame it on the weather. It is our first workshop, so I know there will be many more to come. As Teacher Amy had mentioned, my name is Andrea. I am the very, very proud owner and principal of Zenith Montessori. I have to admit that I'm more of a behind-the-scenes kind of person, so please bear with me as I brave stand in front of you all today. A little bit about myself. I think most importantly, well, me, I'm a mom of 2 beautiful children, lucky enough to have a strong little boy and a feisty little girl. Both of my babies are currently at Zenith. Even though my son is autistic, it has been so rewarding to venture with them and watch them grow each and every day. This school was a near dream of mine from a very young age of 19, when I was the directress of a toddler class at another Montessori school. It was a huge dream, and to be honest, there were times that I didn't think it would be a reality. But with loads of perseverance, many sleepless nights, full of sweat and tears, this is what us here today. I love Zenith with all my heart and soul, and my love tank remains full thanks to all of your amazing children who are referred to as my very own. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your precious babies with us all. This building used to only live in my head, and now I get to live in it every day and sit with all of you. Or technically, all of you are now living in my head. In 2013, I bought the vacant land, marking the start of this truly remarkable journey. After many, and I mean many applications, approvals, appeals, motivational letters to the review, the foundation was laid and construction commenced in October 2016. Leading up to the much anticipated grand opening on May 2nd, 2017. I was terrified, to tell you the truth. It was also daunting. We had 3 children in the whole school. I was the youngest principal in South Africa, and I thought I definitely bitten off more than I could chew. The weeks continued to go by, little by little, the enrollments came in, and by the end of our first official year, we closed with 27. I could literally stay here all day talking about Zenith's journey and all of the experiences thus far. I don't think we have enough time for that. Fast forward through the amazing ups and downs, including COVID, and here we are 7 years in with 120 of the best children at our school and an absolute dream team. Going strong. I really and truly could not have asked for better. Another honor bestowed upon me today is the privilege to talk about someone as inspiring and so ahead of the time as Maria Montessori. What a woman. I actually couldn't find a single word to sum up the impact that Maria has had on this world, and more importantly, the lives of so many children, including our very own. Born August 31st, 1870 in Italy, Maria Montessori did not have a particular mentor, although she was extremely close with her mother who really encouraged her. She had a strong relationship with her father as well, although he disagreed with her choice to continue her education. In 1876, after the Montessori family moved to Rome, Maria entered a public elementary school, and then at the early age of 13, she enrolled into classes at an all-boys technical school, graduated secondary school in 1886 at the age of 16. Thereafter, she continued at the technical school in the hopes of, with the intention of becoming an engineer, a very unusual aspiration for a woman. But upon graduation in 1890, with a certificate in physics and mathematics, she decided to study medicine, even more unlikely pursuit given the cultural norms at that time. In 1890, despite being discouraged by the professor of clinical medicine, Maria enrolled into the University of Rome to complete the degree course in natural sciences. The degree, along with additional studies in Italian study and Latin, qualified her for entrance into the medical program at the university in 1893. Maria was met with hostility and harassment because of her gender, requiring her to perform dissection alone and after hours. In her first year, Maria won an academic prize and secured a position as a hospital assistant, gaining early clinical experience. In her final 2 years, she studied pediatrics and psychiatry, working in a pediatric consulting and emergency services, becoming an expert in pediatric medicine. Maria graduated as a doctor of medicine from the University of Rome in 1896, becoming the first female doctor in Italy. Sure. Her thesis was published in 1897, and she found employment as an assistant at the University Hospital, starting a private practice. from 1896 to 1901. Yeah, there's a lot of dates here. Maria worked with and researched children experiencing some form of cognitive delays, illnesses, or disability. She also began to travel, study, speak, and publish both nationally as well as internationally, advocating for women's rights and the education of children with learning difficulties. On the 31st of March 1898, Maria gave birth to her only child, a son named Zenith Montessori, who was born out of a love affair with a fellow doctor, Zenith Montessori. If Maria had decided to marry Giuseppe, she would have been expected to cease working professionally. She decided to continue her work and studies by keeping the relationship with her child's father a secret. By pressure from Giuseppe's family, forced him to marry, leaving Maria feeling betrayed. Ultimately, he decided to leave the university hospital. She was then forced to place her son in the care of a wet nurse, where she was distraught to miss the first 2 years of his life. However, Mario and herself were later reunited, where he proved to be a great assistant in her research. In 1897, Maria was accepted as a voluntary assistant at the university's psychiatric clinic, visiting asylums in Rome, which she observed children with mental disabilities. These observations that were fundamental to her future educational work. Maria also studied and was greatly influenced by the work of physicians Jean Ettard and Edward Segoy, leading her to solely focus on children with learning difficulties. In 1900, the National League opened the Orthopedic School, an institution for training teachers in educating children with learning difficulties, where Maria was appointed co-director. During her 2 years at the school, she developed methods and materials which she later adapted to use with mainstream children. The school was an immediate success, and children in the model classroom were drawn from the asylum and ordinary schools where they were actually considered uneducable due to their deficiencies. Later, some of these very children passed public examinations given to so-called normal children. In 1901, Maria left the orthopedic school as well as her private practice, enrolling into a philosophy degree course at the University of Rome. Much of what is included today would consider psychology. Although she did not graduate, she did pursue independent studies in anthropology and educational philosophy, conducting observations and experimental research in an elementary school. Revisiting the work of Edward and Segoy, she began to consider adapting her methods to educating children with learning difficulties towards mainstream education. Maria Montessori continued to present reports, publish articles, conduct research, and lecture until 1908. In 1906, Maria was invited overseas to care and educate a group of children from low-income working families, which she then applied her work and methods to children without medical disabilities. The name Casa de Bambini was suggested to Maria, and the first casa was opened in January 6, 1907. Enrolling 50 or 60 children between the ages of 2 to 6. Very much like as I said. Well done. In the first classroom, Maria observed behaviors in these young children which formed the foundation of her educational method, noting episodes of deep attention and concentration, multiple repetitions of activities, and sensitivity to order within the environment. Given free choice of activities, the children showed more interest in practical activities and Montessori materials, rather than toys that were provided for them, and they were surprisingly unmotivated by sweets and other rewards. Over time, Maria witnessed a spontaneous self-discipline emerge. Based on these observations, Maria implemented a number of practices that became hallmarks of her educational philosophy and method. Replacing all heavy furniture with child-sized tables and light chairs for children to move around themselves. Placing all child-sized materials on low accessible shelving. Expand the range of practical activities and personal care to include a wide variety of exercises for the care of the environment and self. She also included large open sections within the classroom, encouraging children to come and go as they please across different areas and lessons. We all know this today as our prepared environment, or aka our classrooms. Maria felt that by working independently, children could reach new levels of autonomy and become self-motivated to accomplish new levels of understanding. She believed that acknowledging all children as individuals and treating them as such would yield better learning and fulfill potential in each particular child. Maria experimented with allowing children free choice of materials, uninterrupted work cycles, and freedom of movement and activities within the limits set within these environments. She began to see independence as the aim of education and the role of the teacher as the observer of children's innate psychological development. With the first Casa being such success, the second Casa was opened on April 7, 1907. The children in the program continued to exhibit concentration, attention, spontaneous self-discipline, attracting the attention of prominent educators, journalists, and public figures. In 1908, 3 more Casa beings opened. In 1909, Maria held her first teacher training course in a new method in Italy, with another 3 teacher training courses in 1910 and 1911, 2 in Rome and the 3rd in Milan. Her reputation and work began to spread internationally, and she gave up her medical practice to devote more time to her educational work, developing a method and training teachers. By the end of 1911, Maria Montessori's education had been officially adopted in public schools in Italy, Switzerland, and was planned for the UK. By 1912, Montessori schools had opened in Paris and many other Western European countries, and were planned for Argentina, Australia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Mexico, Syria, the USA, and New Zealand. Public programs in London, Johannesburg, Rome, and Stockholm had also adopted the method in their school systems. Maria's work was widely published and translated during this time. By 1917, her work had been published and translated into Italian, Russian, Polish, German, Japanese, Romanian, Swiss, Danish, Spanish, Dutch, and English. In October 1911, the first Montessori school was opened in North America, and the second school in Canada. By 1913, which is only 2 years later, there were more than 100 Montessori schools across the country. Training courses continued throughout America as well as England every year until the beginning of World War II. By 1936, the Italian government had ended all Montessori activities in the country, and Maria's anti-fascist views caused her to be forced into exile from Italy during Mussolini's premiership. During her exile, she developed her work, Education for Peace, in which she expressed her ideal that children are peacemakers and that education is the only true means to eliminate war. Quoting, "Establishing lasting peace is the work of education. All politics can do is keep us out of war." Between 1913 and 1936, Montessori schools and societies were established in France, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, Russia, Serbia, Canada, India, Japan, Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand. In 1929, the first International Montessori Congress was held in Denmark. At this event, Maria Montessori and her son Mario founded the Association Montessori International, or AMI as we know today. This was used to oversee the activities of schools and societies all over the world and to supervise the training of teachers. In 1932, Maria spoke on peace and education at the Second International Montessori Congress in France. She spoke at the International Peace Club in Geneva, Switzerland, and again on the theme of peace and education. Maria held peace conferences from 1932 to 1939, which were later published in Italian and English. In 1949, and again in 1950 and 1951, Maria Montessori was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, receiving a total of 6 nominations. From 1939 to 1946, Maria and Mario were in India, and during these years, her and her son continued to develop her educational method. The term cosmic education was introduced to describe an approach for children aged from 6 to 12 years that emphasized the interdependence of all elements of the natural world. In 1946, at the age of 76, Maria returned to Amsterdam and she spent the next 6 years traveling in Europe and India. And in 1949, she returned to Europe to attend the 8th International Montessori Congress in Italy, where a model classroom was demonstrated. That same year, the first training course for birth to 3 years of age, called the Montessori School for Assistance to Infancy, was established. Montessori was directly involved in the development and founding of UNESCO Institute for Education in 1951. She used the address as an opportunity to redouble her advocacy for the rights of the child, who she often referred to as the forgotten citizen or the neglected citizen, by declaring, remember that people do not start at the age of 20, at 10 or at 6, but at birth. In your efforts at solving problems, do not forget that children and young people make up the vast population. A population without rights, which is being crucified on school benches everywhere, which, for all that we talk about democracy, freedom, and human rights, is enslaved by the school order, by intellectual rules which we impose on it. We define the rules which are to be learned and how they should be learned and at what age. The child population is the only population without rights. The child is the neglected citizen. Think of this and fear the revenge of its populace. For it is his soul that we are suffocating. It is the lively powers of its mind that we are oppressing. Powers which cannot be destroyed without killing the individual. Powers which tend either towards violence or destruction, or slip away into the realm of sickness, as Dr. Stern has so well illustrated. After such a full life, publishing incredible works, imperative research, and multiple Nobel Peace Prize nominations, to say the least, Maria Montessori died of cerebral hemorrhage on May 6, 1952, at the age of 81 in the Netherlands. Believe it or not, this was me trying to summarize this amazing woman's life and her accomplishments as much as possible. I hope I was able to deliver without revoking the emphasis on the importance of the work and what it means for us all. I think it is fair to say that at the very least, in this moment, we can truly appreciate that Maria Montessori, even today, over 100 years later, her philosophy remains as relevant as ever. The Montessori method is not just an educational approach, but a way of understanding and respecting the unique potential of every child.
Thank you, Principal Andre, for such an in-depth summary of Maria Montessori. There is no way you can summarize such a remarkable person, she tried, but there is so much to talk about. What a remarkable woman. I'm proud to call her my mentor. What was the one thing that caught your attention about Dr. Montessori? For me, it was everything. I mean, how she defied all odds, the challenges she faced, and some which are likely undocumented. What was the one thing that caught your attention? Anybody?
She lasted 51 years.
Correct. I mean, look how far Montessori has come. She lasted only 2 world wars. 2. Anything?
She didn't give up.
She did not give up. She was persistent. I mean, look at what she sacrificed. She gave up her child, their only child, to give us this. That is, we are all parents here, giving up your child. To think about the world, the children in the world, that was huge. Okay, remember the question that I posed. How did Dr. Montessori, a physician who was born before the 20th century and died in the middle of the century, develop an educational approach that prepares people or young children for the 21st century? We are still using her principles. We are still following her method. She was born many years ago. This started many years ago. So what is it? What did she do? How did she know that these principles are going to be applied in this way? The answer is elegant in its simplicity. She observed the children. She looked at the behavioral patterns in their interaction with the environment. She conducted many experiments in various parts of the world. Their lifelong observations and inferences led to the discovery of the child. The discovery of the child. Children were born from the beginning of time, but they were treated as intruders in the adult world. They were never seen, but never heard. Or they were seen, but never heard. They were seen, but never understood. They were just there, and it was the adult's responsibility to mold them into what they wanted them to do. That was the norm. There was nothing wrong with it. Everybody was doing it. It was normal. Until one woman discovered the child. What is to discover? Anybody? What is to discover? The dictionary meaning of discovery is to find something or someone, or to realize or find information for the first time about something previously seen or unknown. They were there. They were seen, but never discovered. So what did she discover? What was there to discover that was not so obvious? Based on her discoveries and observations, Maria Montessori came up with 10 guiding principles that we follow. I'm not going to dwell much into these principles because each principle warrants a whole workshop on its own. We need 3 hours to talk about one principle. She came up with about 10. So I'm not going to dwell much into that, but I'll just list the principles and you can just chat about it for a little bit and then move on. Okay, principle number 1. Respect for the child. Let us forget about children for a little bit. Let us talk about us, adults. We may not be friends. I may not like you. We may not see eye to eye. But I will respect you as a human being. Am I right? And you can wrong, please tell me. I will respect you as a human being. Children are human beings to whom respect is due. Because I see the child as an individual, I will treat him or her with respect. What separates us Montessorians from the rest? We are Montessori teachers, you are Montessori parents. So what separates us from the rest is we understand children. Because of that, we respect them. Respect because we understand what is happening in their psychic life. We respect them because we know that sometimes they don't understand themselves, but they still go on. There is a lot of developing and development going on there, but they still go on. They still carry on. One moment they will respect you or they will obey you. The next minute they don't. Why? Do you guys know why? One minute you say, Isabella, do this. And then she will do it willingly. And then the next, Isabella, do the same thing. She won't do it. Why? She could be tired. Could be tired.
She's always pushing boundaries. So
Kids are always pushing boundaries.
Children have their
probably we can open somewhere and then see what's happening, then it would have been better. But everything is under the secret. They will obey you one time, the next minute they do not obey you, simply because what you are asking me now, what you want me to do right now is not aligning with what's happening in here. There are vital forces that goes on in this mind that we do not understand. They don't understand these things. But when they do not obey us, or when they obey us 1 minute and the next moment they do not obey us, it's not because they are being naughty. They don't choose to be naughty. They cannot help it. These vital ages, they are called vital forces that are in each and every child. It forces them to do things they cannot control themselves. So how can you? I do not understand what is happening to me. So how can you? Principle number 2. The absorbent mind. Let's just go back and into this thing. I feel like we need to talk more about this. This is the problem. And I'm told to respect this child. Simply because now I understand what's happening in here. But do we really understand? Like I said, it's happening in secret. Do we really understand? Okay, we try to understand. So why are we respecting this child? It's not merely because we want to respect the child, but there are indirect consequences to that. I'm going to respect you, my child, because I'm treating you as an individual. Because I know if I respect you, I'm going to give you freedom. So respect gives birth to freedom. I will respect you and give you freedom to choose your own work. I'm respecting you to give you freedom to fix your own mistakes, to clean up your own mess, to choose your own work, to go around in the environment that I have prepared for you. I'm respecting you to do things for yourself. They won't be able to do that if they do not have freedom. So respect gives birth to freedom. So when you respect your child, remember that you are giving this child freedom because you trust this child. Many times we give a child something to do and then already we see a mess coming up. We're going to say, okay, you need to pour yourself some water, but what we see already is a mess. We see a mistake before it even happens. Let's learn to trust our little kids. Just say that. Okay, principle number 2. Remember, guys, if you have any questions, you can just raise up your hand or you can write it down and you can talk about it after the presentation. The absorbent mind. This is the first 6 years of life, and these years are crucial in the child's development. This period is called the absorbent mind, where the child has the capacity to fully absorb information from the environment and the environment itself. The absorbent mind permits the child to embody the present stage of an evolving society. It permits him to form an individual of his time and a man of his civilization. Operated from birth, the absorbent mind is so powerful and so active that within the first year of life, the baby has already incarnated all that surrounds him. The absorbent mind is like a sponge that takes in everything. Whatever you give, the child is going to do. Whatever you say, whatever that the child comes into contact with the environment, it gets in there. They absorb. Sometimes we say things unconsciously. We say some certain words unconsciously. I mean, life is difficult as it is, and sometimes we talk to life and use certain words. These kids take it in. So we need to be mindful of what we say in front of the kids. Sometimes they will pretend or they'll seem like they can't hear you or they didn't hear you. It goes in. They may not be able to say it back to you, but eventually it will come out. Sensitive period, that is the principle number 3. Principle number 3, what are sensitive periods?
The sensitive period is a block of time in a child's life where they are completely consumed by one characteristic of the environment to the exclusion of all others. Say what? So children go through, all children go through different sensitive periods. All children go through these sensitive periods. It's a block of time, so from this age to this age or anything like that. And once that sensitive period is over, you cannot get back to it. And that is when they are most open and focused on that one thing. So if a child's going through a sensitive period for language, they will absorb language during that time.
Okay. So it's not the same period in their life, like it's not, for some children it's from 3 to 6 or what is
So
the
there's
age?
a general, especially for like a sensitive period for language, there will be a general age for that.
Okay. So
Which
it's
is why
different
they give you like a guideline of like where a child should be at a certain age.
Okay.
But every child is an individual. So like the difference with a Montessori class and a mainstream school, we have mixed age groups within our classrooms, and there's a reason for that. And it's not like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, we're all going to do maths.
Yes.
So we have our prepared environment, which is our classroom, and the children have the liberty to move within these boundaries of the environment. And they can pick and choose. And one child might be going through a sensory period for language at that time, and another child going through a sensory period for numbers. They can work on their sensory periods simultaneously.
So it's not identifiable, like you can't identify this is now the state that they
And
don't.
they definitely can.
You can.
Yeah.
There are expected norms,
Okay,
but
norms.
not everybody falls within those norms.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's for us to be the observer
Observe
and
and to see.
guide them.
Right.
So can I say something?
Yeah.
Say for example, a child is going through sensitivity for colors.
Yes.
So in a Montessori environment, we'll see the child taking the color box all the time. You understand? So that is also like a sign, like an indicator to tell us that this child is going through sensitivity for colors. So that would be the perfect time
To expose them.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything moves from concrete to abstract. So if you want to start with primary colors, move on to secondary colors, then to tertiary colors. So you want to kind of go
The full spectrum.
from the concrete to the abstract, so that they understand just the idea of it by the end of that sentence.
Okay.
So, my question is there more than one thing that they can focus on, or is it just the one thing that they experiencing in the sensitive period? Because example with my son, one moment he's with colors, the next is with numbers, the next so that's why I want to know, how do you actually pinpoint, okay?
Okay, so I think I get your question. Like he jumps from one activity to another, and then when he's done, he just goes to, so that may not be a sensitive
Okay.
period. So when a child is going through a sensitive period, let's say for numbers or for order or whatever, you can see the focus that he puts when he's doing that task.
Okay.
And how often he repeats the exercise. So, for example, when Cyrus, when he is in class and there is so much noise around, he won't be distracted because he's focusing on that.
Okay.
Once that sensitive period is over, then he will move on to another thing.
Okay.
So if he is taking this and that and just monitor how much he is spending on a particular exercise. So it may not be a sensitive period, but him just exploring or just wanting to do one exercise and then suddenly moves on to another.
So it just has intense, it focuses intense on one thing and then goes to another like really fast.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that may not be a sensitive
Yeah.
period.
You know, I was thinking because sometimes Kai is doing one thing forever. Then my husband would be like, no, Kai, why don't you come do this? So should we not interrupt it?
Do not interrupt. So, yes, so if he is doing something, we do not have a limited time, or we do not limit them and force them to do something else, because that's more like you are imposing it on the child. So if he chooses to do something, let him do do it. Even if he's going to spend maybe 30 minutes doing one thing, do not disrupt him, do not leave him. Once he's done, he will move on. You see, in Montessori, we allow children to choose their own way. So because he has chosen that way, he is going to take it away when he is satisfied. You just check how he looks when he's done with the exercise. They feel this accomplishment that I've done this. I did it myself. So do not interrupt. Do not tell him now it's time to do something else. Leave the cutting and do something else. Leave the coloring in and do something else.
I might add on it though. So if it is colouring or cutting, and maybe you want to cut in circles or cut in different shapes. So
Forever. I've just had enough of it.
maybe you can paint a 3D object instead. So you can expand on that specific interest. Yeah.
Or you can paint a number.
Yeah.
Paint a shape.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is nice. Okay.
Sorry, just to ask. With all these methods of learning, there's no structure.
I've been expecting this question. There is definitely structure. I know there has been a misconception when it comes to Montessori that kids are left to do whatever they want. Remember, this is a prepared environment. So they are free to move around to choose what they want to work with. So when they are walking around, the teachers are stepping back, not to be idle, but to watch and observe scientifically. So there is structure because the child is walking around and it's not aimless movement. You do not walk around for nothing. You are walking around to go and find work. You are walking around to go and drink some water. You are walking around to go. There is movement. There is freedom of movement. So there is structure because the child is choosing his own way. So the prepared environment is designed to meet each and every individual's developmental stage. So yes, it may, there has been a misconception and there has been a lot of controversy when it comes to Montessori that there is no structure. There is freedom, but within limits, freedom within boundaries, and this is our boundary.
Well said.
Anything to add, teachers?
Can I ask, in terms of this prepared environment, in a school setting, you guys obviously do it so well, right? But at home, how do we implement a prepared environment? Because I've got kind of room and a whole box of these toys. That's it.
Just a box of toys.
He's got a whole box of toys, he's got a stuffed animal, he's got a hideout, this lookout hideout thing where he goes and hides and he sits in there for 30 minutes. Can I call that prepared environment or?
So when we speak about the prepared environment, it has to be attractive. It has to be child friendly. So remember, these kids are born into the adult world. Everything that they have, that we have in our homes, they are meant for us. We've got big chairs, everything big that are for the adults. So if you're going to prepare your child's room and make it his where he's going to explore, make sure that everything is child-sized and everything is in order. There mustn't be clutter everywhere. Like he chooses, he takes this out of the box and then he leaves it. He takes this out of the box and he leaves it. If you can get shelves, like small shelves that you can just put into his room, and then you put everything in order. Once it's done working with it, he can put it back. Or you can stay in the box, but once it's done working with it, you put it in his box. So it has to be attractive. It has to be child friendly. It has to be. It has to meet his developmental stage. If he is going through a sense, I know when you talk about home, it's like. It is very different from school. The school setting is very different from home. right? But we try to make it child size. We try to make everything child size, even the bed. Don't have a bed like this. How is he going to be able to go and sleep whenever he wants to sleep? Try to make it that way.
Another way, so I quickly add, so I'm the OT, occupational therapist at the school, and so I obviously don't have a classroom to work with. But even if you just like initiate a little idea, because often children are sitting on phones and devices and things like that, so ideas come more difficult to them now. So even if you say like, okay, we've got Dolly and we've got a paintbrush, what are we going to do now? Just like a leading question like that, even for them to spark up like a little something that you can go into, that also helps a lot.
This one maybe of topic is, I know it's a preschool, so is the Montessori the same when they go to grade 1 to when they get older? Is the method of learning still the same?
So Montessori is a different method to the traditional school. So when she leaves Montessori school, she goes to a traditional school, these are two different learning methods. Montessori is child-centered. Traditional schools are teacher-centered. So we follow the child. In the traditional schools, the child follows the teacher. What the teacher says is what the child will do. But here, what the child wants to do, we have to follow the child. The child directs us. Because we believe in each and every child, there is an inner teacher. They can teach themselves. We are here to learn. So it's two different learning systems. But one thing I can tell you is where I know that there's a question that's going to come, how are they going to transition from the Montessori school to a traditional school? There is a huge difference. I'm not going to lie, it's different. What we do here and what they do there, they are two different things, but a Montessori child will always have an advantage. Why? Because we have taught the child how to be social, the social skills. Remember, she's going to a big school, it's a new environment, new kids, everything is new. So how do I make friends? I don't want to feel like I'm in a deep sea dying island here. How do I make friends? Because we allow them the freedom to move around, freedom to make their own friends. So number one, she will have that advantage that she can make friends. She knows how to approach the teacher with respect and teach them grace and courtesy every day. Every day in our morning there is grace and courtesy. Every first week of the term there is grace and courtesy. So that covers how to take care of yourself, how to take care of the environment, how to be social, and teach them social skills. So that is an advantage. Number two, we do not put a cap on what they need to learn or what we must teach them. I know some creches are not like our school. Our school is not a creche. It's a school. We do not put a cap on what they need to learn. If a child wants to know or learn numbers up to 9,900, we do not say, you're done. When you get to 10, that's it. We give them the liberty to learn up to wherever their developmental stage takes them. So our kids, most of our kids, when they leave Zenith, they know how to count. They know how to write their names. They know the theoretical ways because we have the language area that is rich, we have the mathematical area that is rich and it does not put a cap. That's another advantage. I'm in a big school, but I still need to learn how to make friends. I still need to learn how to count up to number 10. I still need to learn how to write my name. And the teacher is telling me you need to write your name. So I have an advantage. All I have to do is adapt to this new environment that this is what it is. And kids adapt so easily and so quickly. But because they have these advantages, their adaptation is much easier than a child that's coming from someone who doesn't know how to count, how to write their name, how to do anything for themselves, how to be independent. We teach independence. We encourage
Montessori things around, but there's, wondering how the teachers implement, the transition between the sort of freedom space and then there's a period in the day where there's, you don't get to have freedom, you gotta do specific things at a specific time. Is there specific things you guys do to kind of encourage them that it's now time to
Like bath time.
yeah. Reading time, you know, that type of thing. The freedom thing's great, you can do that, but that other part becomes a bit more difficult when they are, how should I say, very strong and independent. Just good.
Yes, so they are independent, they are, but we still have to guide them. You know, like, I think someone said, yeah, pushing boundaries, the kids are going to do that. But what we have to do is be able to guide them, okay? I know you still want to do this, but now it's time for certain things. Life is like that. You are going to get a time where you are not going to do whatever you want. You are going to do what you are supposed to do when you are supposed to be doing it. So we have to guide them. We have to tell them that, okay, this is time, you've done your time doing this, now it's time to do other things. It's time to go and bath. It's time to go and eat. It's time to switch off the TV if the kids watch this TV. So they will try to push boundaries, but you are the parent, you are the adult. You need to set your boundaries that, okay, there is freedom, but there has to be boundaries as well. There has to be limitations.
Is there specific consequences that those sort of disciplinary consequences that happen in the class? Specifically.
So when it comes to discipline, discipline has to come from within. We have the thinking chair, but not for discipline.
Okay.
So discipline has to come from within. So if you give a child freedom, like I was talking about, you give a child freedom to do what they want, they are going to, for example, in class, they're going to walk around because they have that freedom until they see what they want to do. And then they'll stop and get that material and go and sit down. So discipline has to come, it's a developmental stage that has to come from within. We do not instill discipline, but we encourage good behavior. So when it comes to the thinking shape, it's not for them to teach them to be disciplined. It's just for us to take them away from a destructive situation to be into something that is so much quieter, and then they can just reflect on what they have done. So maybe what you can do when the child is strong, you can just say, okay, you have 5 more minutes to play. And after that 5 minutes, we are done. So when a child is, when you start that from a young age, the child will already understand the concept that, okay, my 5 minutes is done, I need to go now.
The child doesn't really have a concept of time, so it can get a little tricky. So that's why you have to reiterate the whole time. Like, if you do a timer, then when the big hand reaches here, then you know that the time is up. So that is also a nice way to start teaching them the concept of time. Then another thing is choices. So you want to give them choices. So it's like, I know that you really want to continue doing this, but it is bath time. So your choices is either you have 5 minutes and we'll pack it away, or we can leave it as is, go bath, and then we can come back to it and complete the task. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the time, I'm not gonna lie, it's much easier said than done. But yeah, practice will just repetition again from our side will keep consistently similar or yeah. And I mean, sometimes we have our kids and they go to the thinking chair by themselves. And that's kind of what you want to create for them. Like this, it's a safe space for them to just kind of remove themselves from something that's destructive to a more constructive energy. So sometimes they go there and they're just like, you know what, I just need to sit. It's not a thing of like, you 3 years old, you sit there for 3 minutes. You can sit there for 5 minutes, you can sit there for 3 seconds if you want to. And then the other part of that is, let's think about what we did, why it's not okay. So we don't just teach children that you say, when you do something wrong, then you need to say sorry. But it's also, more importantly, why are you sorry?
Okay, so it's also the emotional thing, the emotional intelligence, and making sense of the emotions,
Correct.
and how to regulate the
I mean,
thinking
I can't
or the
make sense of
feeling
my
or the emotions.
You know, we all have our days, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of
That's
emotions.
actually very important, emotional intelligence.
So I just want to add with you, so something, so for example, like my fine motor groups now that I'm doing for older kids, some people will say that now you are interrupting the sensitive period and maybe they're not sensitive towards fine motor at the moment. And within Montessori you get to choose what you want to do, but the reality is you know that if they're going to go to a mainstream environment, they need that fine motor input because as a grade 1 you're going to be expected to write and do everything that you need to do. But so that's exactly where we act as guides again. So it's almost about we know the general structure and routine and everything that this child needs to be achieving in a day. And so at the end of the day, we need to get them to be able to then be operational and fully functional.
So I understand that only for the kids, and when they go to class 6, so they just go in and then they decide, okay, today I want to be doing this. Or they sit down and the teacher tells them at the certain period that, okay, you guys will now choose what you want to do. Like, how does it happen? Like, when you drop them off and yes.
So when they come to school in the morning, when you drop them, they go to class. They choose what they want to work with. Immediately as soon as they go into class, we do not say, okay, we're in here now, you need to sit down. So it depends on what time you drop it out, but if it's earlier than 8:30, then the kids will choose work or they will choose whatever they want to do. Some might choose to just go and sit on the mat, or some might choose to just sit down and just relax after being rushed to get ready to school. And they just want to relax.
Maybe the child wants to learn alphabets on that day. Do they have a teacher now to tell them this A, B, C, or they just like look at the alphabets and then just, I don't know, like, do they have someone telling them this is A, this is B, this is
So, like I said, we are in the classes, we are the guides. Or must I say, we are the teachers, so that we can understand, we are the teachers. So when a child is going through that sensitive period for letters or for letter sounds, the teacher will sit with the child and start presenting to the child. So what we do is we have what we call the 3-period lesson. This is when the teacher and the child sit next to each other. So the other kids are doing whatever they are doing, so it's me and the child. So those are one-on-one lessons. Then I'll sit with the child and I'll say, this is cut. So we have, so we have what we call the sandpaper letters. So these are sandpaper letters that are mounted on a wooden board. So they have to trace the letter. So when they trace the letter, we say this is cut. So we just say cut and they're tracing the letter. So that's period number 1. Period number 2, then we say show me cut. So remember, this is me and the child. So it's just the two of us sitting. Show me cut. And then when the child is able to do that, then we move on to what is this. And the child will tell you this is cut. So we trace it so that they can have the muscular memory. So whatever the hand touches, the mind will always remember. Sometimes the child will not remember, or you will show it. The child might master the sound, and then you ask him again later, what is this? Doesn't remember. But if you ask the child to trace it again, then they'll trace it again, and then they'll say, this is cut. So our materials, they are always hands-on. They are mostly hands-on. Whatever the hand touches, the mind will always remember. And the hand is the instrument of the mind. So yes, there will always be a teacher that teaches the child. Like I said, they have freedom, but when they are doing whatever they are doing, choosing their own work, we are watching. We are observing. We see that she always goes to the level of setting. She always takes the same type of material. Then we know that she is going through that sensitive period, and we take advantage of that, because once it's
what group activities?
Thank you. For example, we have the morning ring. That is our first group activity that we have every single day. This is where we do the theme discussion. We talk about the date of the week, the number of the week, and everything. So the morning ring sets the tone for the day. So that is the group discussion that we have the first thing in the morning. And then we have group presentations where we sit and talk about and present maybe if it's the broad state, or we are presenting grace and courtesy. So it's again a group.
So are they all then expected to participate in that group activity?
If they want to, yes.
Or if they want to?
Yes. Sometimes if they don't want to, you can just say, okay, it's fine, you can go sit down and do whatever you want. Mostly it's not the whole class, so maybe you can take 5 kids at a time or 6 kids depending on the age group that you have. If they do not want, we do not force it. But with the kids, it's monkey see, monkey do. When they see others doing it, and then they do look like, oh wow, I'm missing out and they're enjoying it. And then, okay. Okay, like I said, there are 10 principles. I'll just go through them and so educating the whole child, that is the holistic child. Okay, that's principle number 4. Principle number 5, individualized learning. Our lessons, our learning programs are personalized to each child based on their unique stage of development. Like we talked about one-on-one lessons, and so most of the things we spoke about already, so I'm just going to list it down. Number 6, freedom of movement and choice. We spoke about it. The prepared environment, we spoke about it as well. Principle number 8, intrinsic motivation. It has to come from within. Like I said, the kids have got that inner drive that makes them want to do things, that it exerts the child to want to do certain things. We do not force it, it comes from within. Principle number 9, independence. We spoke about that as well. No one can be free if he's not independent. So we need to be freedom, but they have to be independent. Number 10, auto-education. This is one of the core principles of the Montessori method. We spoke about that. Yes.
Sorry, what is that? Auto.
Auto-education.
Okay.
Okay, so this is
Intrinsic
intrinsic motivation.
Sandy, can you just give me number 5 again, please?
Number 5 is individualized learning. Individualized learning.
The first one is respect for the child, the second one is observant mind, sensitive period, individualized learning. I got that as number 4.
Number 4 is educating the whole child.
Educating the whole child.
Holistic.
Holistic approach. Number 6, freedom of movement and choice.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you've got all 10.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have all the 10 principles. Are we still good on time? Just.
I guess we want to take a break now.
Yeah.
Water break, mutual refreshments, and then we can.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can just take a break. Go and refresh, stretch our legs. And it's freedom of movement. Legs, wiggle, other dishes. And I hope you all had the yummy biscuits. They were made by yours truly. So if you want to All right. We spoke about a lot of things before we went to our break. I'm going to continue with onto another topic. Montessori had a profound respect for the child. She marveled at the constructive possibilities within the child and hope for humankind that resided in each little person. She regarded children as fellow human beings, not as inferiors, and this freed her from the typical adult prejudices towards young children which are still commonly held today. Eventually, with this open-minded and humble attitude, allowed her to discover the true function of childhood in the development of the human being. Montessori wrote, and I quote, "I have found that in his development, the child passes through certain phases, each of which has its own particular needs. These characters of each are so different that the passages from one phase to another have been described by certain psychologists as rebirths." Dr. Montessori termed the stages from birth to adulthood the 4 planes of development. So this is what we are going to be discussing about, the 4 planes of development. These stages of development are grouped in 6-year cycles. So each stage lasts up to 6 years. Okay, so from the first stage is the infancy or early childhood, and this is from birth to 6 years old. And there is the second plane of development, that is childhood, from 6 to 12 years old. We have the third one called the adolescence, from 12 years to 18 years. And then we have early adulthood, from 18 to 24 years. Right. So from birth to 24 years. A child and an adult will still be developing. So if we have 23-year-old parents, they are still in a plane of development. It's good to know, you know. Okay. Maria Montessori did not think of these as a rigid chronological pattern. Rather, the ages are approximate. Although the child is moving from birth to maturity, the stages should not be thought of as entirely linear. They are more like the tide ebbing and flowing within each other, so they flow into each other. So from one phase to the other, from one plane of development to the other. Each plane starts anew, bringing forth a new set of characteristics, needs, and behaviors. As the plane reaches its peak, it begins to recede. So when you see a child maybe from 6 years old, then that plane of development is beginning to recede, making way for the beginning of the transition to the next stage. Montessori called this the constructive rhythm of life. So from one stage, for example, from birth to 6 years old, we can start seeing the changes when the child is 6 years old. So he or she is paving way for the next plane of development. Remember, guys, we are discussing. So if you have any questions, additions, you are more than welcome to jump in. The sensitivities of each stage guide the development and determine the rhythm of movement through the planes. Although each plane is distinct, there are childhood and the adolescence are thought of as the most dynamic and creative stage. So from 0 to 6, and then from 12 to 18. From
Can I ask, if that's the case, where do you guys stand when it comes to arts and music and musical instruments, things like that, to, that goes together with creativity stage 0 to 6 years old?
So the creativity they're talking about is a child creating themselves. So this is a child that is creating the next man, the future man. This is the creativity they are talking about. It's the dynamic and creativity. So it does come into play that they are being creativity. So it goes two ways. Creativity, they are creating the future man, and then creativity, they are creating, they are beginning to use their imagination. So creativity goes from 12 to 18, they are beginning to use their imagination. Okay, I see, for example, like Montessori, even though she was older, but everything started as an imagination, imagining a world that is free of all these social injustices. So that goes to the 12-year-old, the imagination, the being creativity, they are being creative. So that goes into the 12 and 18, between 12 and 18. So I know we have kids that love painting, they are the toddlers, like you said, I was painting, and then you think, wow, I'm going to have a Picasso of a child when he grows up. But sometimes they go through stages where in the next year or 2 years they forgot about painting, they are on to something else. So, so when you talk about creativity in this age, the toddlers of 3 to 6, they're just using their imagination, they are just exploring, and so it doesn't really mean that what you see now is what you are going to continue seeing in the next 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, or it may be that, so anything can happen. Okay. The second and the fourth planes are more stable. Stable, yeah. So that is from 6 to 12. Stable.
Like the plateau.
Sorry.
Plateau.
Yeah. So they are stable. They are not. They are growing. They are not as dynamic and creative as the first and the third. I mean, when you're 6 to 12, it's like you're just going with the rhythm. You're just, you're just living the life. And when you are 18 to 24, you are a young adult. You are a responsible adult. You are trying to find your way in life. Some may not be as responsible as the others, like I say. Yeah, some may not be as stable as the others, but like I say, children, different stages of life. Okay, the first and the second planes of the years, the first and second planes from the years of childhood, and the third and fourth planes from the passage into childhood. So the first plane of okay, let me just go back. So the first plane is that the 6 to 12, and the 0 to 6. That's the first plane of development. I'm just going to use this quickly. So that is 0 to 6 years. Pardon my handwriting, I write like a doctor. I hope you can read that. Okay, so the first plan of development is from 0 to 6. But then there are some phases in this plan of development. So that is 0 to 3 and 3 to 6. So the 0 to 3 is what we're going to talk about for a little bit. So the first plane is the formation or creation of the individual. So this is the formation. and creation of the individual. So here this is what we have explained. The formation and creation of the individual. Formation and creation of the individual. The second plane is on development of the individual. The third plane brings another creation, the adult in the society. And the fourth plane develops the creation. In addition, each plane contains 2 sub-phases, each lasting about 3 years. These sub-phases. The first 3 years of each plane are for creation. And that goes for each plane of development. That goes to the second plane, third, and fourth. So the first 3 years of each plane are for creation. The second are for development. Although the creative phases of the second and fourth planes may not be as dramatic, the personality is still forming and there is still creation. During the second subphase, the last 3 years of each plane, what has been created in the first 3 years of each plane is going to be developed in the next plane. It's going to be developed and solidified. So first 3 years is creation. A child is taking up everything unconsciously when it comes to the absorbing mind. Everything that is that the child encounters in the environment is just taking up everything. Creation. And then when the child goes on to 3 to 6, whatever that was created when the child was between 0 to 3 is going to be developed and solidified. So it's a continuation of what started here, what comes up to here. You create and then you solidify. Okay, the plans of development can also be thought of in terms of a type of a metamorphosis. If we think of the appearance, needs, and life of a caterpillar, we see a completely different creature than that of a butterfly. It will later become. The caterpillar crawls along eating leaves. So those who've done the life cycle of a butterfly. It starts with the egg, and then there is the caterpillar. So it crawls along eating leaves. So just think of it as a child. It crawls along eating leaves. The butterfly, that is the adult. That cross coming from the caterpillar is now the butterfly. The butterfly does not crawl along leaves. The butterfly flies to the plants, flies to the flowers, from flower to flower, collecting nectar. The caterpillar does not do that. So just think of the plans of development. From one plane to another, there are 2 different things. The caterpillar and the butterfly are 2 different things, but it's one thing that is going to make the butterfly. So each development, if each plane creates or makes way for another development. So if the first plane of development or the second plane of development is not, was not made or did not solidify, the next plane of development is going to be in shells. Okay. We cannot aid the caterpillar by providing a garden full of flowers, nor will the butterfly benefit from the green leaves. The child too is quite different in each stage of development and needs very different conditions in order to thrive. They are identifiable mental and physical characteristics at each plane, and the child the child does not satisfy all his needs at one stage, he moves into the next with a deficit. This deficit cannot be made up naturally, but only with conscious effort using the characteristics of the plant. We cannot say the butterfly looks small, let's feed it with more leaves. Some creations, such as learning a language, will never be the same as if they were learned in the optimal developmental plan for a particular, for that particular ability. At each plan of development, a particular level of independence is attained. In the first plan of development, the child strives for functional independence. Dr. Montessori told the story of a young child who said to his teacher, "Help me to do it myself." How many times has the child nagged you about something and you just kept on doing it for them? I want to put on my shoes. I want to do it myself. And we allow them to do it themselves. Because we do not have time. They take up a lot of time to put on their shoes. I mean, life doesn't stop until you know how to put on your shoes. So I need to do it faster. We need to go. We need to go to school. We are running late. The gate is going to be closed at 8:30. So what do you do?
You never have shoes.
That's one thing. That's it. Going on. Life is busy. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. But because we sometimes choose not to listen to that silent voice that says, "I want to do it myself," we end up doing it for them. We have to go. You really have to go. So you end up doing it for themselves. It's raining. You need to put on your rain boots. You need to put on your rain jacket. But I don't want to. I want to put on this. So what do? Go without. And feel to yourself that it's raining outside, so you're going to go without. But that's pushing boundaries. So everything has to be, within limits, and just we do try to abide by the Montessori principles, but sometimes we still have to guide them. But we have to listen to that silent voice. Help me do it myself. A lot of things are there.
The thing you're talking about is that between 3 and 6, obviously that's not between 0 and 3.
From 2 years old, if you really want to look at it, from 2 years old, they say do it self. The sentence might not be full, but I want to do it myself. Do it self. Me, I want to do it. Somehow they tell you, I want to do it myself. But sometimes we don't listen to that. From 2 years old, they want to do it themselves. From 2 years old. Oh,
Yeah, even 2, and she is just,
yeah, mommy. She wants to do it herself. But she cannot, but she is saying, help me. Help me, show me how to do it, but we do not have time. So, in as much as it may be so difficult, we still need to find time to help them do it themselves. Many times we do not realize what we are doing to these kids. We become an impediment to their development. We become an obstacle to their development when we do things for them. They can do it, just trust them.
I'm sorry, I just want to add also to Aggie, a way of guidance you can also grade. So you can physically assist them, but then you can also verbally assist them so that they're still doing it with their hands as well.
I know things are a bit hectic and life is too fast, but let's just find time to show them how to do it, let them be independent. So this is the first plan when they want to do it themselves. Like you said, most especially when they become bigger, I want to do it myself. And they can tell you, I want to do it myself, I want to push on my shoes, I want to close my bag, I want to pack my own snacks. But we do not allow them. So it's mostly in the first place when they want to do things for themselves. Help me do it myself. The second plane, this changes. So that's approximately from 6 upwards. Help me to think for myself. Help me to think for myself as the child works towards intellectual independence. So I know I am a child. I know I'm small, but please help me to think for myself. Don't just do things because you feel I need to do that, but help me think for myself. As the child moves, at the third plane, the adolescent moves towards social emotional independence. Help me find myself. At the fourth plane, early childhood, the young adult strives for economic independence. Help me to support myself. Give me business ideas, and I'm open to suggestions. Help me. Don't just leave me, I still need you to guide me. Okay, as the child moves from one plane to another, the adult must recognize the physical and mental manifestations at each stage and prepare an environment that is suited to meet those needs. In this environment, the child can act freely, performing the work necessary for his own self-construction, guided by his own inner laws of development. So exactly, we have this first plan of development. We have kids from 18 months up to 6 years old. This is what we do, this is what we specialize in, the most dynamic stage. So the first plan of development occurs from birth to around 6 years old. It is divided in two sub-plans, the 0 to 3 and the 3 to 6. At birth, a human baby is virtually helpless. Yet, in only a short span of time, or in the span of 2 to 3 years, she has gone from basically being innate to running and dancing, from crying and cooing to chattering and singing. This is really quite astonishing when you think about it. The child was hopeless, was entirely dependent on you. The child is not born with a small vocabulary that she just needs to build upon. There is nothing. But there is a potential for language development. Every human child is born with the potential for language development. She actually creates the language. So because the child is born without a small vocabulary, the child doesn't know how to say hello. The child doesn't know how to say I'm hungry. It's a newborn baby. She does not have any vocabulary, but the child creates the language, whatever language that the child hears. So what you speak is what the child takes in. So the child creates the language, whatever language you guys speak, whatever language you guys use at home, the child will create a language according to that. The newborn baby is not able to stand or walk a little bit and only needs to practice. The child doesn't know how to do it. The child doesn't know how to walk because nobody taught him when the child was in the womb. So he doesn't know how to walk a little bit and needs to practice on it. She must create movement by building up the muscles and coordinating motions and balance in order to roll over, to sit and to crawl. At this stage, it is not a question of development, but of creation from nothing. This is a child that's born with nothing, no vocabulary, cannot walk, cannot. So this is now the child creating, being or herself from nothing. It is even more astonishing when you consider that from birth to around the age of 3, the child is not conscious of learning anything. Montessori refers to the child in this first subplane from birth to around 3 years of age as the unconscious creator. The child is not conscious of anything, just creating himself unconsciously. During this most important period of life, the child is not conscious of learning but creates the person he or she is to become. The child remembers little of his time. And yet what happens during these early years becomes part of her forever. She has a type of mentality that is unapproachable by an adult who can exercise no influence on it. The mother does not teach a baby how to walk and to speak. The baby independently develops the mental and physical powers for language, movement, and sensory perceptions. She waves her lips and puts her fist in her mouth before she can move intentionally. She intently studies the human face and listens to the sounds of speech, and then begins to babble and coo. She experiences tastes and smells before she has words to describe these ideas. When these sacred components are complete, she begins to coordinate these independent skills into a unified function. This is the creative period of the first play. The child is creating more herself from nothing. Any questions so far? At around the age of 3, the child becomes what Montessori called the conscious waker. So we are coming from the unconscious creator to the conscious waker. The child is able to interact with his environment consciously and deliberately. He begins to develop self-mastery and self-control. He is able to put to use the abilities that he has been constructing unconsciously. So whatever that he took, whatever that was done here, whatever that was put before him in this age, now he or she is developing, making use of everything that was put to her. He is aware of his work. His work is joyful, purposeful. He is always busy. This is when we get the kids that are, the business starts from 2 already. They are busy. Or maybe before 2 when they just discover that they can walk or they can run. The kids are busy up and down. At this stage, they are conscious of what they are doing. They are conscious of their environment. They are exploring their environment consciously. Not to say when they were between 0 to 3, they were not exploring their environment. They were, but they were doing it unconsciously. Now they are aware of their environment. They take it in consciously. That is why we must always prepare our environment. His hand is the instrument of his eyes, of his mind, and he is busy perfecting and enriching the powers created in the first years of life.
question. By the way you are explaining this, it seems like this first plane is sort of hard-coded, like 0 to 3 and 3 to 6. I remember when our daughter came in, like, how old was she? 2 months, 3 years, 6 months, 7 or something. And then you were like,
7
you want
months.
3 years, 7 months. yeah.
Okay.
And then you were like, you want to assess here first. So like, I just want to understand what's the kind of assessment, like what's the criteria you use to assess
Before moving up.
before moving to the other class?
So what we do here at Zenith, or at Montessori, in Montessori, we have mixed age groups. So in the toddler class, there's 18 months to 3 years old. Okay, and there are kids that have, just because they are 3 years old doesn't mean they automatically move to the 3 to 6 environment. We have to look at the child as a whole. So what we assess is the child as a whole. Remember the holistic approach. We look at the child's physical development, emotional development, spiritual development, intellectual development. We look at everything. So when we say we need to assess her, especially for a child, was she at school before?
Yeah, she was in some school in Georgia.
Yeah, so because we do not know the child, we needed to assess it, see if she was ready for the 3 to 6. Many times we always look at the child and say, but my child is 3 years old, so he or she must automatically move to the 3 to 6 environment. But what we do not realize is the child's emotional development. It's quite overwhelming in the 3 to 6 environment because it's not just 3-year-olds or the 4-year-olds, it's from 3 years old to 6 years old. And there is a lot that needs to be done. So coming from a different environment where you guys moved from George, did you say Johannesburg. You moved from Johannesburg to Cape Town. That was a huge change for her. It may be easy for us because we adapt, but sometimes we also struggle. But for a child, the smallest change is like the world is coming to an end. So already moving from Johannesburg to Cape Town was huge for her. And then from there, she has to come to the 3 to 6 where everything is just, overwhelming. So we wanted to assess if she is ready for the 3 to 6. We have moved up kids sometimes that we're not ready to move up to the 3 to 6, but what does it do? We are only setting up the child for failure. But once we have seen that the child is ready, the child as a whole is ready to move to the 3 to 6, and then we move the child to the 3 to 6. And I remember I spoke to you and I said it may not be for the whole term. It may not be for a long time. We just need to assess it and finish it. So that was the assessment that I was talking about. Assessing the child, looking at the child, observing the child as a whole.
So it's this thing one way they cannot go up, they can go down. That's why you see someone is late, but is developing late. You cannot bring them down to the 3 to 6. It's just one way traffic.
That if they are not
To the blueberry jam class, for example, you wouldn't send them back to toffee at all, is the question.
is that, oh, that's the question.
Yeah. The child finds the 3 to 6 is overwhelming when they are.
Sometimes we have to move them back to the toddler class because it doesn't help to have a child that is not ready and we force the child to be ready. So when they are in the toddlers and they are 3 years old or 3.5 years old, they have that opportunity to become leaders in that class. We are building up their confidence, their self-esteem that, okay, I have small kids in here, I'm going to show you how it's done. So once that, give them that role to play as a leader and let them assume the role to become leaders. And so that when they come to the 3 to 6, they are not overwhelmed when they see they are big kids, bigger than me in the class. So yes, sometimes we move them back because things do happen that we feel like, okay, I think this child is ready to move up, but then once they are up, then we realize, no, maybe this child needs one more term or one more month in the department.
I think
think it's important to understand the differentiation between the first plane itself and the actual curriculum that you guys have in terms of classes. The kid might not be ready at 3 years and 8 months, for example, in terms of being moved into a different class. But it doesn't mean that he's not in the development stage of the first plane scenario kind of setup. So it's important to make the differentiation because it's each individual child, looking at it as an individual instead of as you've not hit the 3-year mark. So it's now time for us to start moving you into that space. You get into that space.
That is correct.
Mine did exactly the same. He's been here since 18 months, but at 3 years he wasn't really that good. And it's 3 years and 8 months now before we looked at actually moving into the next class. But because he had a younger sister, I suppose there's always be some kind of mitigating circumstance with regards to whether it actually meets that criteria. And from my perspective, I like it more of him being in a leadership role, so it's being bigger in the class, getting more responsibility in that class. So it kind of honed that aspect of his personality for me, from my perspective. And like maybe even arguing better for when he does go into the next level kind of scenario. So you can handle different kind of scenarios and situations better than you would have if you just put him at 3 years and not really for that space. So I take it on, that's all the work eventually.
So we don't just look at the age. And like you said, we treat each child, we look at each child as an individual.
No, I just wanted to check with the criteria that you used to actually check. Because I know for a fact that she had been a person who is quite reserved, like she was not used to interact with people, strangers, but I think it's getting better now.
And also she moved from a different school to this place, and we didn't know her. So we had to know the child, like I said, before we even teach the child, we need to know the child. We need to observe the child scientifically and be able to make the informed and right decision that this child is ready to work out.
I think, sorry, I just want to add, I think we've experienced it often when we have a lot of parents that the child turns 3 and it's like, okay, they're moving up. The parents are just like, is there something wrong with my child? Why don't you want to move them up? And like, it needs to be looked at as a whole. And I think a lot of the time that's kind of overlooked. And like Megan had said, I think that is the perfect way. And I like to explain it that when they are in the toddler class and they are with the older kids, the 3-year-olds, then they have that leadership role. So they're like in a primary school when you're in grade 7, like you're the cool kids, you know? You're the cool kids, you get to be the leaders, you get to guide, you get to set an example, build your self-confidence, your independence, all of that. And then you move up to 3 to 6, and now you're in grade 8. Now you're small little fish in this massive pond, and then you need to build up to when you're 6, and then you're like, matric. You know? So it all has those stages, but they're so important. And I think the leadership role for Reese specifically, also he's a big brother. So I think those are all really good qualities for a child to have. So yeah, it's important to take that all into consideration before moving a child. Sometimes we have parents that are just like, no, I'm not talking about it. Just like, please, like, do it. And those are the times that we tend to have to, if any, bring them back.
Have a workshop.
Have a workshop. Exactly.
Sorry, I just want to also add, the ages are always according to guidelines as well. It's based on many children who we do not know was assessed and the formations were then formed, so that's now the norm. But I mean, nowadays also it's very difficult to say. Your household maybe does lots of painting at home and they do amazing at their fine motor kind of skills and because they can paint beautifully. But at the same time, maybe another person has like a little sister and their leadership role is amazing because they are an older sibling. So don't also feel as if now that child is now, oh no, there's something wrong, she's not according to the norms. It's not about that. It's about, and also not only just confidence in their role, but confidence in their skills as well when they move up, because a lot of these activities are upgrades from where those basic activities are like more of the concrete stuff. So this becomes then a bit more of the abstract kind of work as well. So we want them to be confident, I think, in that way.
what time, when are they born in the year? Like, there's so many factors. I mean, for them, you're just like, oh, they're 7 months old, a year and 6 months old. There's a reason why we age them in months, because there's so many massive developmental changes that are literally happening from 1 month to the next. Us adults were like, no, 30, you know, and we're like, leave it at that. It doesn't matter that tomorrow I'm 31. That doesn't matter. Right now, but with a child, it's like, we're just like, no, they're 12 months older, because there's so many developmental changes happening. Also, a child that's born in January is going to be 6 months ahead of a child that's born in July. And like, that doesn't seem significant to us now as an adult, but as a child, those make massive, massive changes. So you can't actually also determine at the beginning of the year, like, by the end of this year, we'll be able to move in here, or they'll be ready for this. So much can happen in that year, but you just kind of have to enjoy the journey, I think. Yeah. Like my son, he's going to be 4 in November, but he's non-verbal, so he doesn't speak. And then my daughter, she's going to be 2 in October, and she doesn't stop talking. And like, their needs and their developments are so different, even though they're 2 years apart. But there's, again, so many factors that play a role.
Okay.
Question on language. You spoke about language. Is there a particular age, and I know kids have the ability to absorb multiple languages at the same time. Is there a kind of period where that goes away and then they become like us, where we have to do this very hard? Where's that age?
So from from 0 to 6.
So up to 6.
Up to 6. But they can still learn another language from 6, but it will be a little bit kind of difficult, but not as tough as but they can still learn, but it's best if we can do it between 0 to 6, because from 0 to 6 that is the sensitive period for language, and they can't learn up to 6 languages in this level of development. But the thing is, when you do that, when you are trying to introduce another language to your child, for example, Portuguese with Isabella, and maybe English or Afrikaans, don't use the 2 languages in one sentence. Or the best way is maybe you speak Portuguese with her and she will speak Afrikaans with her. That way she won't have confusion when it comes to these 2 languages, but they can take up to 6 languages.
So, is it, should one parent or one individual speak the specific language to the kid, to our kids, or can we still chop and change and alternate?
You can alternate, but when you speak to the child, do not mix the languages. As long as you're not mixing the languages. If you're speaking to Cyrus in this moment, then you are going to use English. And then when you speak to him again, if you're going to use Afrikaans, then you stick to Afrikaans. Because I know sometimes it will be difficult to say one parent speaks this language and the other one speaks that language. What if it's one parent? So just don't mix the languages when you speak to the child. If you're in one sentence, for example, like, here's your bottle and you use Afrikaans, I'm not saying.
But please, guys, if the kids are getting confused, I know that it's lovely that they know multiple languages, but if your child is becoming to the point that they can't even communicate in one language, that's really confusing. So some children can learn 10 languages. I know when I was little, my parents used Afrikaans as a code language for me to not learn, to not know what they were saying. And by 3 years old, I was like, yeah, that's lekker. So it's very different for each child. And if you do find that they're getting confused, please stick to one language. And because they learn in English, preferably English.
this remarkable self-construction, the child possesses a type of mind vastly different from our own. Montessori called this special type of mind the absorbent mind, because the child effortlessly takes in or absorbs sensory information and experiences from the environment. It was this quality that particularly captivated Dr. Montessori. It seemed miraculous to her that very young children, living simply and joyously, could learn and orient themselves to complex systems without any teaching, just by living. It is clear that young children undertake an enormous work of development. Driven by nature, they undertake what we regard as a long labor of love in order to develop their individual human powers and to incarnate the language, customs, beliefs, tastes, morals of the human group. This is the kind of development that we work with here at Zenith, the most dynamic, delicate, and important kind of development. So if you look at a child, we all come from different environments. We have 24 kids in a class, and they all come from different environments. What includes in your home may be different to what includes in their home. So we all come from different environments. But the thing that is key is the environment that they are born into, the environment that they are raised into. They take it all. They embody the environment. They take everything. Like I said, good or bad. They take it. And they love it. So if you look at children that live in shelters or that are living in, I'm trying to look for the somewhere. Yes, difficult. Exactly, that's the word that I was looking for. Disadvantaged communities, the disadvantaged kids. For example, you say, I'm going to take you for the weekend, then come to my house. They will come and stay at your house. But after 2 days, they will tell you that I want to go back home. Because that is the environment and that they embody and love. So whatever it is that we present to our kids in the environments that we live, remember they're taking it all in and they love it. Good or bad. But before I say thank you, I would like to because of time, we are going to because of time, we are just going to skip the other speakers, maybe for the next workshop. Teaching I was going to talk. And teacher Shyam. I'm sorry, I got too much. The next workshop, you. Okay, we have all heard about occupational therapy, also known as OT. Have we? Okay. But do we really know what it is? I didn't know. I had to Google it. I didn't know, honestly. So it's okay if you guys also don't know, then it's a lot of us. But here at Zenith, we are privileged to have our very own in-house occupational therapist, Nicole, and she's going to explain to us what she does and what occupational therapy entails.
But I do need my cookie. Thank you. No, sure, you can leave that there. That's okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Nicole. I'm the occupational therapist here at Zenith. So just a little bit about my background history. I qualified as an OT in 2015 and then did my community service here in Port Elizabeth at a hospital. And then, sorry, I was just getting to frame. And then in 2017 I started in private pediatrics, so I've been working about 7 years now in OT. Started with the practice, then owned my own practice, stayed a little bit with Zenith, then was outsourced as an OT and came in like once, twice a week. And then actually with chatting with, with Principal Andrea, we just saw the massive importance because as I said, having experience working with Montessori schools, sometimes the children, as much as what they follow the internal motivation, the fine motor stuff is a little bit difficult sometimes. And sometimes also because of the fact that we come from different households, our sensory input is also not always the same. So for example, if you are sensitive as a parent towards like textures and stuff like that, your kiddie might not be as exposed to those types of inputs because unconsciously you will be like, no, let's make this clean and let's not do that and no messy play. So I'm the auntie that comes in and does messy play for the world and the teacher's gonna hate me, but it's fine. I assist with cleaning up, so it's okay. And then pretty much also, I'm not just an OT, I also in 2022, I qualified for my specialization in sensory integration as well. So as an OT, you are obviously sent into the world with some general knowledge kind of thing, but then after years you'll find that if people are in a specific kind of practice, then they will specialize and do something a bit more in depth. And so working here at the Montessori school, it was so lovely to see the eye-opening ways that Montessori was so, how can I say, she was such a pioneer because she took into consideration like the sensory development of a child. She thought about her actual words working in the asylum where she was with the children was the fact that the kids had less sensory input and less activity that actually made their conditions worse. So even working like within adults mental health kind of district as a student, you could also see that lack of taking part in activities and lack of engaging in your life and your independence, it does sometimes then make things worse and you almost regress. So I want to say that Montessori, we were hearing from 1800s, she was already doing her thing. OT, occupational therapy, only actually started in 1915. So she was like even before that, which was amazing to me. And so, yeah, I'm not going to really cover like the stuff about our Jean is. She's like our guru for sensory integration kind of thing. But I will give you guys a bit of an insight to occupational therapy. So OT started in 1915 after the war. And what they found was that the soldiers were not able to engage in their occupations anymore. So for example, they would struggle to now go home and make a sandwich. And that then leads into difficulties and mental health and a whole bunch of other lovely things that we don't want to get into. So what occupational therapy is that, for example, if you see a physiotherapist, they will look at, okay, great, your range of motion is now not great. What can you do to improve that? Whereas an occupational therapist will look at you holistically. So think about now when I'm talking about my stuff, it's like it taps into so many of these principles, it's amazing. And so holistically, we will look at a person and we'll say, okay, for a child, their main occupation should be play and schooling and then their activities of daily living. So like brushing their teeth or combing their hair and washing, those types of things. And if we find that there is a bit of a regression or they can't completely do these things independently, then we will go down and then we'll do an assessment on them. So again, our intervention is always client-centered, it's child-driven, it's based also when we then do the intervention as well. Once we've seen, okay, cool, this skill is maybe falling out, or this skill they need a bit of more input in as well, that is the reason why they're not engaging in the occupations. So we break it down, work on the skills, work on the child emotionally, holistically, and then go forward like that. And with SI specifically, it's the same thing. So if I have a session with a child, for example, because I do not only the sensory groups, so my sensory groups are from 0 to 3 years old, and then the fine motor groups are from 3 to 6 year olds. So those are how I've done it with the children in the classroom, and then we do individual sessions as well. But when my child walks in for an individual session, the stage is laid. We've also got activities open, so I'll like put out 1 or 2 games kind of thing. And if they want to go and scratch and today I know we feel like painting, then I will take that activity and say, for example, we're working on bilateral coordination, which is now like 2 hands working together kind of thing. Then I'll make that activity so that it's focused on working on that skill. So very much internally motivated by the child and following what they need to do, but then still working on what they need to improve. Okay, so what we, and I want to say, so Zenith Montessori herself also said play is work for the child. So you can see she was completely like activity led and driven, and it was just really, really cool. But so what we talk about often is the wall house of development. So your, let's just say, modulation, sorry, control this. Okay, so what Montessorians also talk about, these are your different sensory systems, tactile, smell, taste, and then perception. Show me by a thing of hands, guys, who wants me to quickly explain the different sensory systems? Are you guys okay? Right, so, and then up top here is exec. Okay. So, with the different sensory systems, so what we say is we scaffold. So we start at the bottom. Same thing as what the Montessorians do, where you first of all you have to start with your basics. So if your sensory systems are not doing and your body is not working how you are wanting it to do, these different skills, so these are our skills that we then develop in order to get to the executive functioning stuff. So this is the stuff that we see like concentration or handwriting. So these are like the big things that we see at the end. In order for these things to first develop, those things need to be in check. So you've got your visual sensory system, so that is your vision. Then you've got your auditory sensory system, which is now hearing. Then you have your tactile, which is your touch. So you've got your touch sensory system, you feel things. And then you've got taste and smell as well. So that's obviously what you taste and what you smell, and that's one sensory system as well. So if you've got a blocked nose, that's why you then can't taste at the end of the day. And then these 2 sensory systems, your proprioceptive sensory system and your vestibular sensory system. So these 2 are often used to self-soothe and to regulate yourself. So if you're feeling tired, or you're feeling sick, or if you're stressed and you're anxious, small things might come at you really intensely. So, for example, it takes a small little noise and all of a sudden it's like, what? Or at the end of the day, when your sensory systems have been through the most and you're sitting in traffic, it takes one router or one guy to like walk in front of you and you are like, I'm so angry. So we are constantly regulating as people throughout the day and keeping ourselves okay. So vestibular is your movement sensory system. So as a baby, we will often take our babies and we rock with them. So that's immediately known as to be a calmer. Same thing if you guys are stressed, you will pace up and down. So it's a calming thing. But vestibular can also be very exciting because if it's not slow and steady, Then, if it's fast and you're going, woo, like you're on roller coasters for the day, then it becomes very activating. So I often will tell the parents, be careful of the stimuli to be like you trying to soothe or help them regulate, because to keep it controlled is difficult. Then this one is like proprioception. So think P, push and pull. Oh, sorry, your vestibular sensory system is within your inner ear. So your movement sensory system. Also, if you think about if you've got a middle ear infection and you've got a lot of fluid in your ears, that is why you'll be like off balance and why people get vertigo. It's because those little hairs are in your inner ear. They pick up your movement system. Then proprioception, like I said, think push and pull. So your proprioception sensory system is found all over your body. It's within your muscles and your joints, and as, like for example, when your heart pumps, it pushes your muscles contract like that. And every time it's going like this, it's sending an electrical impulse to your brain to say, oh, my foot's on the ground. But I don't have to look there because I know my foot is on the ground. Or if I am busy driving a car, for example, I know I don't have to watch my feet. I know I've got to do the clutch and this and the change the gears and everything like that. So that sensory system is massively known for comforting us. If you are, for example, in a car accident, immediately when somebody goes to you, they give you a hug, and that's a push feeling, so that's calming. If you go for example, a deep pressure massage or something like pushing kind of feeling as well, the same reason why the kids are always climbing. So that climbing feeling is also nice pressure, pushing. Water gives a lot of that pressure as well, so the kids often will find that they relax and calm when they're in the water because it gives that natural resistance and that push. And the same thing you'll say like, oh, the kids are always hanging from everything. It's the same thing, it's the pull feeling that they're getting within their joints. That's been calming them as well. So as a baby as well, we swaddle them, so that's that nice tight wrapped feeling. As well as if you have a dummy, so then you are sucking on it, then it's the pulling feeling. And if they've got a bottle or if they are chewing on things, that's also why we smoke, as well as like chew bubble gum and stuff to make us calm as well. Because in our jaw, we've also got those proprioceptive sensory systems. Okay, so first we register the sensory input. And then what happens is that we either modulate it, so modulation has got to do with mood. So mood to say, how do I feel about it? So if, say for instance, something touches me and I don't like the feeling, then I'm going to do something to modulate and regulate myself to feel better with one of these two, most probably. So I'll either then go for a walk or I'll do something to get away and quiet and have a bit of a chance to recharge my batteries. So, and then discrimination is when you use it as a skill. So, for example, if auditory-wise I'm being given an instruction, I've got to listen now and block out everything else and use that as a skill, or visually as well. So visually we're looking at this and then I'll use that to then learn from. So if those things at the bottom are not working nicely, then our skills are not going to develop. And then we can't have, for example, a nice strong posture to sit at the desk in order to concentrate. Or we won't have the motor skills to be able to go to the shelf and pick up and hold the thing without maybe dropping and spilling it. So what's really nice about the Montessori, what this curriculum, what I've seen, is that they already had so many nice gross motor activities built into it. They've got their general sensorial activities as well. So I was really well chuffed coming into the school to see, because I've had other Montessoris where I'm like, oh, what is happening here? But they are very much according to these principles. And so that's, I think, why I also felt so comfortable to bring my role into the school, because I felt they really have an understanding and a respect for the practices. So as I said, so my role at the school is with the groups, so that I'm making sure that the children are getting these types of sensory inputs all the time, and that they are able to regulate and modulate and discriminate as well, and use those skills. And then we come to, if I had to now do obviously all the individual skills that fit into here, the bricks to make the roof of the house, you'll see that the fine motor skill is higher up as well. So that's why we allocated for the other kiddies, the 3 to 6 year olds, because they then are supposed to have that foundation in order to then build up to having good fine motor skills. So yeah, so does anybody have any questions?
How often do you actually work with the kids itself in terms of on a daily basis? How frequently is that interaction?
So my schedule at the moment is blocked out that every day I'm with the class. So, and with the individual kiddies, I'll see them once a week. So according to research, so what I want to say is that also a big reason why I wanted to come into early stage development is because of that neuroplasticity. So what we talk about is that your neurological pathways are very easy to mold before the age of about 8 years old, I would say. By 8 years old, if I get like a private key, I already know that child has formed habits and what we call splinter cells. So a child can go and learn something off by heart, but then they don't have the actual skills to back it up. So I'll often find that we're undoing those types of things. So it's really great that we do find if you keep it consistent. Sometimes if you have a kid that's really difficult and they really need a lot of input, you can do intensive therapy where you do like every day, once a week. But at the same time also, it's not just up to the therapists. I'll always say, as an OT, we've also been taught, like, you teach a man to fish. You don't now, this person has come to you and you've got an hour every day work with this kid, but the parents don't know what to do with them. That's not helpful at all. So I will then, when I see the children individually, then I send like feedback to the parents as well every week, and I just let them know, listen here, over the weekend, please try and do, like, obviously I know things are very busy, but try and play a game like this. And often with the kiddies that I also see individually, I'll even include like with the sibling. I'll say to them, okay, but this will also improve or help the other little one. Try this and do like obstacle courses at home or do something. And it's always play, always fun, always have to motivate them to do it through fun stuff. So I think also that's the best way that these Montessori kids are learning, the fine motor stuff especially, because often it's seen as like scary and it's like, oh, that's for big kids, it's not nice. So I will always bring it in where we, and I feel like the teachers probably sit here and they're like, what is she actually doing? But there's really a method behind our madness, but it will be, for example, like tweezers is a very simple way to get those 3 fingers in order for pencil grip and things like that. Often also, like I said, bilateral skills help with them cutting with scissors. So we want to bring in activities where it's both hands involved. So yeah, so once a week is good enough that research has shown, but like I said, we are open to if they need help. And also, sorry, another thing that I want to add is also if, for example, the teachers are having a difficult time in the classrooms as well, or if I'm here during like afternoon care time, and I see that a kid is like melting down massively, then I will also say like, okay, come, let's go to the little Netty Lemon room and then we'll do some like bounces in the spandex or something fun, just also like try and get them to regulate themselves as well. But the goal at the end of the day is that as adults, if we are sitting and working, which is awesome because the Montessori environment allows for that. If we are working, then we want to get up and we want to move a little bit and stretch our legs. The goal is that we want them to be able to read their body and to be able to do that so they're on their own.
Okay. Sorry, I've got 2 questions. Are you doing individual sessions with the 0 to 3 group or only 3 to 6?
No, 0 to 3 as well.
3.
Yes.
Okay. And my second question is like, what tips do you have for us to teach our toddlers how to self-regulate their emotions? So as I was at Woolies and
So first of all, I want to ask, what you've got in our football. But so, if they can't understand auditory wise, then to show them like visual, that's when you get like a visual plan and kind of thing. You say like, so we're going to brush teeth now, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to go to school. But for example, like I know Kai, you could say to him, like, okay, we're going to go in the car, like we're going to go to the shops now, and you're going to go to Granny, say for example. Because if you guys think about also, often we have to put ourselves into their shoes. Like if my husband had to come and fetch me now and say, not even say to me, though it's different if he says to me because then I can mentally prepare. But if he doesn't and he's all of a sudden like, okay, now we go to this one's house and that one and this and that, I'm going to lose my mind in there after. I'm also going to throw a tantrum. But so when he's in that space as well though, even if you feel like he needs to be a bit great, like so for example, we'll always call that after school, end of the day, suicide hour, because everyone has nothing in them, left in them, and we are fighting with the children are fighting us, and it's not happy. So if anything, like even have something maybe in the car, like something chewy that he can like crunch on, or something that he can play with, where maybe some clay, like press stick or something like that he can push on. So those kinds of fidget toys is also really good. Sucking through a straw is lovely also. Very, very calming as well. So if the kiddies are ever in the bath and you guys throw a bunch of straws at them, let them like blow bubbles in the bath, because that's really calming and relaxing for the kids. But there was also something else. I can't remember what else I wanted to say now. Good job. Prepping them before the time, and that's why we give the 5-minute warning kind of thing also in the classroom to say like, you've got, you guys will see when the groups happen, and the kids are having so much fun. I have to put a timer on because I'm like, it's not your turn anymore. Everyone needs a turn. Well, I'll stay home. They'll stay on the thing because it's fun and it's lovely all day long. So having that kind of thing. There was something, but yeah, maybe we'll pick a little bit
I think
later.
we're going to talk about when they're in that moment, when they have the meltdown, like how
Yes.
to deal with it. In words, when you have the old funnies and you have the gentle parent judging.
That was also something that I wanted to talk about, the different types of discipline. So sometimes, so you either have sensitive kiddies or you have a seeker, or you can be a normal in the middle, but that's kind of our spectrum and range. And sometimes if you've got a kiddie that is seeking proprioception, then you can give hiding to that child until the days the cows come home. You won't feel it because his pain tolerance is so big with the proprioceptive sensory system. It's the same thing, for example, if your child is struggling to go to the toilet, then that internal stretching of the bladder, that pulling of the bladder, they're not getting that electrical impulse to the brain to say, oopsies. So often, like if a child will come into a sensory room with me and I do some like probe and things like that with them, then all of a sudden they're like, I need the toilet. And it's their internal things, their more body awareness coming out. But so you have to find what obviously then works for your child. So that's why, like I said to you guys also, there's different ways. So thinking chair or time out is a good one. If your child is too busy and doesn't want to sit on the thinking chair for long enough, then the toy goes on the thinking chair, or the toy goes into time out. That's also a really big one where they're like, oh, that's all. And you're just like, well, sorry, you've got to wait 5 minutes because you were not listening. So if you don't want to sit, then they've got to sit. And so, yeah, so you've got to see what works best for you guys. Some people, they just have to raise the tone of their voice, and then the child's like, I'm so sorry. So in that moment, you've got to see, is it a behavioral meltdown, or is this like a sensory overload meltdown? Behavioral, if, say for example, a child is asking for a sweetie, and you take that sweetie, and once they're crying and freaking out, you give them the sweetie, boop, fine, that's not a sensory meltdown, that's behavioral. They are manipulating them. But if you give them that lollipop and they are still screaming blue murder, then the best thing is to, like I said, do some form of probe. I normally go and hold the children, and then you keep it slow and steady. So if the child is even upset to the point that they're not even registering your auditory sensory input, like you're telling them, I love you, it's going to be fine, and they're just screaming still, their sensory systems are not in a place that they can register and process that. So, like I said, keeping it then the same thing. So I will literally hold the child and then just like rock back and forth slowly and say, it's going to be okay, we're going to be fine, it's going to be okay, we're going to be fine, until they grow. But so, for example, in the trolley situation, you could take Kai and put him into that little thingy where the kitties sit, and just let him in there. Or you could also put him into the trolley itself and then pile the stuff on him. Because then that's also so like you guys laugh, but I mean, when I was little, I used to go shopping with my mom, and it was like the most funniest thing, because then she would like load the week's shopping on top of me, and I always thought that, like, why did people probably must have looked at my mom also like, what is this woman doing? But it's actually, it's helpful, and it was what I was showing and telling her, like, this is too much for me to be in the shop right now, please help me. Because also, last thing about that topic is, when you're in an unfamiliar environment or an uncontrollable environment, it's very difficult for a sensory kid, because they need that prediction and that control. They need to know that, okay, just now this Tanya is going to come up to us and talk to us, and then that's okay, but like, what next? What, is she going to take me next? Is she going to touch me? Like, what is next? So it puts them very much on edge. It's the same reason why often if you have a difficult kitty, they love to play with older children, because older children are more predictable and they're easy to manipulate than what a little one is as well. Because like this little one can go in the mud and then all of a sudden touch you and oh, that's disgusting. So yeah, keep it, so, and that's also getting the structure and the routine kind of thing. As much as what you need to keep it, obviously, how can I say, according to what you need to do. It's not always about the kitty, like you're not going to always have the same thing, but at the same time, you're just giving them a bit of a heads up to say, like, we're going to change it up today. Okay, you guys are good. I think, yeah, we're going to wrap up. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody.
I have to put this on, it's a new toy, so. There we go. Thank you so much, Teacher Nicole, for such an informative presentation. Now we know and understand the natural synergy between Montessori and occupational therapy. So this marks the end of our first parent workshop. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all.
Sorry, okay. Before you leave, I'm this thing, I was wondering, should I ask you outside? You know, I don't know. Oh, yeah. I'm always wondering, what is my child doing this time, and what is my child doing this time? So, is it possible I can run us through the timetable for the school? Like, when they get here, until they do just a brief, okay, they get here, they do this, they do this. They eat this time, they do this, and then.
So I will start with the toddlers. When you can come and typically run us through what you guys do in the toddler section, and then I'll just speak about it.
I'm Teacher Tina in the toddler section of the 18 to 3 years. So when you bring your child here, it depends on what time you are in, your child is in. You welcome the child, you take the child to class. As Montessori school, we encourage independence. And it takes a while for a child to unpack their bags. We are very patient as the Montessoris. We don't rush them. That's why we get that whole lot of time in the morning before we start. So they come in, they unpack their own bags. When we feel that your child or a child is right, then they come in. Because before we let them be themselves and start
we role model for them. We show them. In Montessori, we don't do a lot of talking. We role model most of our things.
You're such a lifesaver. Thank you.
Because they learn better in a quiet environment. They learn better without our words. They learn better in a way that doesn't distract or scare them. But sometimes the people's voice, they make a child do that. So we prefer to do it in silence. We only talk when it's necessary. So first we will model. So they will be aware of what we are going to do, what is coming next. Like what Teacher Eddie and our therapist was saying, that we prepare, we tell, we communicate with them, like what is coming next. So when they come in, they can cut their heads. We have specific areas in our classes where they put things. They go and put bottles, their lunch, their snacks. If they feel like they don't want shoes, they also will do And we have our way of controlling the boundaries, how we can let them still keep their Jesus on, because we do it in a certain way that you may not be using at home. So that one is dealt with in our way of solids. So after that, they go to the shops, they may greet, they can go and explore even how the wall looks like. We don't tell them, come sit, come do this like what we have from the previous presenters. So, because we have that demo time to enable them to be themselves. So they come, they go around, if they feel like, I want to get work. It doesn't matter which part of our work. Of course, in the winter, because of the temperatures, sometimes we control how they work with water. But otherwise, they are not limited. They can work with water right away from home. So we let them do it. They get their work, they sit, as we wait for 8:30 for the interaction time in the morning in a circle that we sit together. So in that way, we do from 8:30 to 9. So from there, we get ready. We have schedules according to class that we go in the freeway, in the rainbow or outside. So from that time, around 10, we come back. It's around that bracket of time from 10 to something like like half 10. That all the classes will rotate and have their playtime and their snack, the first thing that goes for them. One thing that I also want to mention is if your child doesn't take breakfast from home, then you feel like I want to save it. Some parents do so. It is accommodated in the face of the time before the second, the morning meal. So after rainbow time, we come back to class, we switch and swap the snack time. And then we have a second example. They also encourage to go to the shops, they look, they set whatever they want, they sit wherever they want to sit. We have the net, we have the tables, we even have the colors on the tables, and they feel like today I want to be purple, I want to go with blue and all that. So they are independent to do that, and we let them be. As I mentioned, I keep repeating that because I'm in Montessori inside all the time. So after that, we'll be ready for lunch. So we start to get them ready. They know the routines that we pack away. So it's according to the day that we also have the orgy coming. We also sing, we also dance according to the theme sometimes that we may be having. Because we also do numbers, we do days of the week, we do all the basics that the child must learn during that time. After that, they get ready for lunch, those who live, they'll get ready, and those who go home early will do that. So, unfortunately, Montessori didn't talk about it. But basically, this is after that, after the nap time, that is from 2 o'clock, that is, I don't know, around 12. From 2 or from 3, they go to the rainbow. We have activities that we do with the guide from the core team, with the guide from the curriculum of the Montessori. So if you check again on our page on Facebook, you can see how we do, what your class is doing. So you can see what I can bring around from the child and know what they are doing. And even when you get to a child after school, they will tell you, I've done this, they've done this. And we go to the rainbow because we wait for them to come and fetch or different other times. So maybe in short or what is not brief, this is how our training is. It's not very different from the 3 to 6 also. But the way it is ready, only to get some on the 3 to 6.
Thank you, teacher.
So with the 3 to 6 is just the same. 8:30 we start our morning ring. 8:30 to 9 o'clock we sit on the mat, do our morning ring. Once we're done, then we have a 3-hour work cycle. Of course, it will be interrupted with snack and with some classes playtime, but it's a 3-hour work cycle. When the 3-hour work cycle is finished, then we have our lunch, 12:30, 1 o'clock the kids go to sleep, and then they go to the rainbow room for after they also stay for after. Okay. Right, so this marks the end of our first parent workshop. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful weekend and stay all time.